Okay, welcome to SU Pod, Especially Heinous. I'm Gabe.
I'm Tasha.
We're on season 7, episode 8, Starved.
Ugh,
This,
dude.
I can't. This
I
was
know.
a terrible Walter Wilson. Wilson.
Walter.
Shut up, Gabe.
Just sitting at the... Oh. Did you hear me say your name? Oh,
He's
no,
like, oh, now
on.
I got to come over and do stuff.
I got to come say hi, hello. Why are you ignoring me? Lay down.
Yeah, this episode was hard for me to get through because I related so much to Cora, the girl, that I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, it got really gross. And it was hard for me to... I ended up talking to my therapist about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Gabe texted me last night and was like, I'm uncomfortable with how much I relate to this person and I feel really gross. And I was like, yeah, same.
Like her shit with men is what it was. You know what I mean?
And how and everyone's frustration around her and her just being like, you don't understand. That's too bad for you guys. Yeah. But also like anyway, let's get into it because I'm hoping this isn't going to be crazy long, but I will tell you in advance that the chaser is extensive and I really, really tried to pare it down, but I didn't and I couldn't, and it's extensive.
That's all right.
So
sometimes we have short ones, sometimes we have long ones. So
your face looked like that face people make before they throw up, though. You were like, that's fine. It's going to be a fun day. Let's do it. Bong!
All right, opening scene. The music is all swelly. It's nighttime. A guy in a ski mask is picking the lock to a room. He goes inside. There's a calendar that says October 2nd. There's a light on, and he unscrews a light bulb. He's got gloves on. He stands over this woman while she's sleeping, then puts his hand over her mouth, and she wakes up. She's freaking out. And he tells her, obey me or die. Cut to another lady's house. I'm assuming it's the same man. He's entering another woman's room in the middle of the night. The clock says the date is October 12th. He clips her phone cord, then covers her mouth with his hand, and he says the same thing, obey me or die. Cut to the medics wheeling a woman out on a stretcher. Benny and Stabes are there, and she tells him that a man put his hand over her mouth when she was sleeping. He was tall, he was wearing a ski mask, and he smelled like baby powder, and he told her, obey me or die. Benson tells Stabler that it's the third attack this month. Stabler says, so far, and Benson hops in the ambulance with the woman. Theme song. At the hospital, Benson is with the victim while she's getting a rape kit. The victim says she is very careful, always locks her doors and windows. Benny tells her that he picked her lock and he knew that she was alone. He could have been stalking her. Benson tells her that the other women who were attacked also had the locks on the doors picked and they were attacked in the same way, and he said the same thing. Benny wants to figure out what all the victims have in common, so she has this woman walk her through her daily routine. She says she's out of town a lot, but she does go to a gym when she is home. The other victims are interviewed by Stabler and Toots. The victim who was attacked on October 2nd doesn't go to a gym. She has a personal trainer. The victim who was attacked on the 12th doesn't have time to go to a gym, so that's not a connection. All the victims are asked if they go to church or volunteer anywhere or have recently filled out any forms that have personal info. Turns out all three of these women had recently filled out a questionnaire for speed dating, which I've never done, and it sounds awful.
It does sound awful. I also never have. It seems to be a common theme in like
movie. I was thinking of the 40-year-old virgin where he's like, leave my friend alone. And she's like, I fucking changed my address. I changed my phone number. He's like, well, I didn't know that. So at the precinct, Toots, Munch, and Stabler talk about speed dating. Munch says that it was invented by a rabbi to match his students with Jewish mates, which I didn't know.
Stabler's like, speed dating, huh? How's it work? Just asking, just in case Kathy left me. Kathy left me.
Kathy left me. The papers are on my table. They're dusty. I won't do it. Stabler asks him how it works. Munch says you meet 10 women for 3 minutes each, first names only. You write down the ones that you like, and if the feeling is mutual, the organizer emails you both. Munch said he went through a dating slump and tried it. Turns out there are so many varieties of speed dating, like under 30, over 50, gay, straight, etc. Cragen comes in and says that the fact that there's so many types of groups that speed dating can focus on, that is what made it possible for the perp to zero in on his specific victims.
Yes. Successful women in their 30s.
So the same company, Speed Encounters, which is, okay.
Speed Encounters?
I know. Like, what fucking sci-fi show is this?
I hate it.
The same company, Speed Encounters, hosted the speed dating events that the 3 women attended, but none of the women went out with the same dude. Or did they? Benson thinks that the perp maybe wasn't a date they went on, but could be the psychologist that used to run the speed dating company. He lost his license 2 years ago for sleeping with his clients.
Yeah, this is where I thought he was a red herring and they had just gone on the date with the same guy who used a different name.
That you were right about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was right. Yeah. So we're going to go there. Stabler and Benny question Jack at Speed Encounters. When Benny asks what he would call sleeping with his patients, he refers to it as exploring new treatments.
Barf.
I'm like, do you mean old treatments? Remember hysteria treatments in the 1900s?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Also, he played an anchorman in Mindhunter.
Oh, I love Mindhunter.
But this guy says he learned his lesson. He lost his practice. So, duh. Benny calls out the benefits of it.
Oh, God.
He found an endless supply of rich single women. Benefits?
How have we never thought of that before?
I don't know, but I was like, she's either going to love this or hate this. And his response to that is, I didn't rape anyone. I do not understand that response to that statement, but they go on.
Yeah.
Stabes tells him the only link between our 3 victims is him. Jack and I think that it could be possible that the same guy, the perp, signed up for speed dating under 3 different names. Yeah, people do it a lot. That's a pretty easy find if they're all under the same email address. He searches the company's database. Ding, 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 ding. Yep. Romeo at foryoumail.com. Since it's a free email service, it's not traceable.
What?
And I mean, I know.
I know. I was like, what?
I know. Like, shouldn't it be even simpler? I don't know. Like, get to Reuben on it, dudes.
Yeah.
I get dickbags using aliases, but if you're committing a crime, you'd think that you'd make it harder to trace every single name back to you.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
So they let this guy know to reach out in case Romeo comes to any more events. And then I was like, oh my God, Benny's going to end up fundercovering.
Yep.
Speed dating. Back at the precinct, the victims are sitting in front of a chalkboard while Stabler, hot professor, goes through everything with them to narrow shit down. They all had the same experience. He paid for everything, opened the door, listened. Stabler, he seems like a nice guy. Why'd y'all turn him down for a second? Why'd y'all turn him down for a second date? And they all said that they noticed red flags of controlling behavior.
Sam was like, no, you didn't.
No. That's terrible.
I love when you, I know I've said this before, but I love when you like laugh at the joke and then get it even more later while you're laughing and it gets louder.
Yeah.
You're like, it works on 2 different levels.
I like that almost every time you it's so obvious to you that you call out me doing it.
I do every
because
single time.
I'm thinking as I'm laughing,
Yeah.
and then more of the joke comes through, and then I laugh harder, and you can tell which laugh that is. Ah, I love you.
Love you too.
Oh, okay. So they're talking to these women, and they all agreed that they noticed red flags of controlling behavior. I am going to skip past this lady just blanket statementing that she hates sushi. You cannot hate an entire category of food. I'm not just saying like sushi's amazing and everyone should think that. I'm saying like there are so many different varieties.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
So
yeah.
Come on.
That's, you know, now she likes sushi.
Obviously.
Right.
Slow pan through the glass to Benny and Wong watching from the other side. Benson comments that even though the names were different, the women all went on a date with what seems to be the same guy. Huang notes that the women all seem to be the same kind of woman. Smart, powerful, accomplished. Yes, yes, yes. The rapes are about revenge for them turning him down for a second date. Huang thinks they're dealing with a narcissist trying to repair his wounded ego. It's possible that he was in the military. All the attacks were planned out like a mission. He's disciplined, organized, and meticulous. There was no DNA, no prints or fibers, nothing. But the women all agreed that he smelled like baby powder. Again, what's with the same email address then?
Stupid.
Especially if it's like a free email. Make a different.
Yeah,
All right.
make 3. Make as many as you fucking want.
It feels like such a blatant oversight when you're doing all of these other things. This is someone new to the internet. This is the internet being a new thing.
This is 2005, yeah.
Yeah. Huang doesn't think that the 3 women at the precinct are his first victims since he has perfected his technique and that the control is what arouses the perp.
No shit, you're an SVU. Like, what the fuck? Okay.
Yeah. Cragen comes in. The Romeo email address signed up for a speed dating event for that evening. Benson looks at Huang and tells him that the perp is ... looking for a new Juliet.
Puke.
Yeah. Shut up. Romeo, take me somewhere we can be alone. At Nick's Martini Bar and Lounge, we pan through the speed dates and their conversations. I love cats. I'm a dog person. Brr, I'm from Colorado.
That's how I felt when I was abducted or whatever the lady said. Yeah.
Benson is undercover as Rachel and looks incredible. Duh. The time's up and the men are asked to shift down one seat. Thank God she can only be riveted by this other dude's Pez dispenser collection for so long. This is why she only dates individual tomatoes. Her next date walks up. It's Dean Cain. The Adventures of Lois and Clark Dean Cain.
Oh, that's right. I couldn't figure out where I recognized him from.
Oh my God. He has 204 credits, but unfortunately is undeniably a better looking Scott Peterson. I hate that I think that. That's all I can see when I see him.
Scott Peter. What do you mean?
The guy who killed his wife, Lacey.
Yeah.
He looks just like him.
Oh.
I had to Google it, but he actually did play Scott Peterson in 2004's Perfect Husband, the Lacey Peterson story. Remember she was pregnant and then he did all this shit that was also in Gone Girl where he's like, oh, he's at a vigil, but then he's like smiling and whatever. And then they found out that he was dating Amber Fry and she didn't know that he was married.
Yeah, I kind of remember
he was
it.
Like on the phone like, oh, I'm in Paris for New Year's. Oh, I wish you were here. And he was really at like a fucking search party event for his missing wife.
I need to rewatch. I need to look into that again. I always get him confused with somebody.
They just did a new thing on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
You get him confused with who?
Oh, there's another guy that killed his wife. I mean, there's so many. I don't know.
So this guy, Dean Cain, handsome, tall drink of water. He sits down and tells Benny his name is Jim. It's not. He tells her his name's Jim and that she is the most beautiful woman in the room. We know.
Then the lady sitting right next to her is like, what the fuck, dude? It's like, you were right.
And then she sees Benny and goes, yeah. He tells her that he can't believe that she needs help finding a date. She plays up the perp's preferences. Pretty, put together, professional. I didn't plan for all those P's. She tells him that she's in advertising. She only meets men at work and doesn't want to mix business with pleasure. He tells her that he's on Wall Street and his business won't interfere with their pleasure. Cute chuckles.
At the precinct, Stabler asks Benson if she's heard from Jim yet, but she hasn't. Then there's like this weird interaction between them. He says, oh, well, maybe you weren't his type. And she's like, sure, Jan. Of course he was interested.
You're not going to knock Benny's confidence, you jelly.
Yeah. And then he like looked at her and he was like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, what was that? The like early will they, won't they thing?
Yeah. Just razzing you.
Yeah.
One of the guys. You're not pretty. You like football.
Right. Help me bury this body. I'll do it because I'm one of the guys. I don't know. Just then, Benson gets an email from Jim asking her, Rachel, out for a drink. Stabler's pissed and he uppercuts 15 cups. So Benson meets Jim for drinks. He's laying it on thick with Benson, telling her she has brains, beauty, and a successful career. And then he like fixes her hair slightly. Kind of puts it closer to her face. I don't know. He's like, much better. And she's like, okay. Then they order another drink and she's like, oh, I want a Chardonnay or something. And he's like, oh, no, she doesn't want that. She wants a fucking
dirty
martini with like extra fucking blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, I don't want that. No. And he's like, trust me, you'll love it.
If somebody ordered me a dirty martini, I don't like olives or
Yeah.
like vermouth, like the whole thing. What if she just doesn't like that flavor? I've tried to drink them. I'm like, okay, maybe this is a refined. No, it's not for me. And he's like, you'll love it. Really? Because I don't enjoy the taste of olives. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Do you not think that I don't know the drinks that I like?
I'm in my 30s, guy.
Yeah. So he's just like what the other women said. Benson asked him about his last relationship, and he says they were together for a year, but he knew after 2 months that he didn't really like her, that they didn't have anything in common. He basically says that he kept her around because she cooked and cleaned. Okay.
Hot. This guy sounds hot.
Yeah. And Benson's like, oh, you're looking for an equal. And he's like, yeah, totally. Jim tells Benson he's looking for a woman who knows what she wants and how to get it.
Really?
Except for she doesn't know her own drink. Okay.
My exact note here was then let her order her cab, you chode. Like,
yeah. Jim asks her what she's looking for and touches her frickin' knee in that weird, creepy way. It seems like he wants to hook up, but Benson gets up and tells him that she's got an early morning. She thanks him and leaves. And you see Toots. He's like straight up, he's craned his neck watching them.
Oh my God.
And she like walks by him.
He's Clark Kenting so hard at the bar. I loved it. I laughed so hard seeing his little perched up on his bar stool with his schmancy suit on and his fucking just slicked. He slicked that fucking ponytail, that little tight braid so far. And Stabler's like, I've got some fun glasses if you want to wear it for our undercover project.
They're in my trunk. Jim quickly leaves cash on the table and follows her out. And then Toots follows Jim out. Later, Benson goes to her apartment, and I hope it's not really hers. It's just an undercover location because that's dumb as fuck.
That's exactly what I said too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think that's what any woman at least would watch it and go, I really hope that this is like a fucking faux apartment, herring apartment.
And then the camera cuts over to the stairwell, and there's like a tiny window in the stairwell, and Jim's face is in it. It's so funny because it reminds me of, it's like the Velociraptor in the fucking Jurassic Park kitchen. It's like
I took a video of it and I just sent it.
Did you really? I didn't even think of that till right now. I was like, oh my God,
of
that's
his
so funny.
face in the I fucking just his face framed in the little glass window, like like she's gonna walk by. She has to be facing it at one point as she's walking toward / past it. And his face is in there like it's a fucking school photo. Like it's just his face.
Yeah. So she walks to her door and walks in, and then Jim stalks her to her door, turns around, and Stabler and Toots are there with their fucking badges out. And they're like, hey, what's up? What are you doing? And he's like, nothing, whatever. They arrest him for 3 counts of rape. And he's like, what's going on? What?
Stabler was smiling so big.
Yeah. At the precinct, Jim is questioned in an interview room by Stabler. He says he didn't rape anyone and says that he's a surgeon. He saves lives. Okay. And then Stabler says that he's heard he strikes out a lot with the ladies and speed dating. He's like, no, I'm a man. I'm a big, strong man. He's like, no, I am cool. I don't. That's not me. I'm huge with ladies. Stabler brings up this dude speed dating fakes names. He's like, why do you have to fucking do this? I thought you're a surgeon, blah, blah, blah. Fucking Benson walks in and calls him Jim. She's like, hey, Jim.
Jim's like, what are you doing here?
He's like, Rachel? She's like, it's fucking Detective Benson.
Boom.
Bitch. So his real name is Mike Juergens, by the way.
Mike Juergens. His name is Mike Juergens the surgeon. Other names? He has several versions.
We Dr. Juergens the surgeons.
Women don't want to sleep with him, despite his coercions.
Juergens says he lied about his identity so that women wouldn't find out he was a surgeon and then, quote, see dollar signs, even though he's dating these like successful, accomplished women, whatever.
And it also doesn't matter. Like, you're leading with, I'm a professional fucking chode and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're leading with that anyway. You're leading with the appearance that, like, you've got your shit together, which implies financially sound, whatever. Like, it just, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he's lying. He's lying. So that's, you know.
Benny asks why he followed her home. And then Mike says he followed her home to apologize to her and ask her out on another date. Stabler calls bullshit and says that he followed her home to rape her. Stabler goes over the MO of the other victims from earlier. He meets a girl. He acts like a control freak. She turns him down. He stalks her and then sneaks back to rape her. Stabler calls it a compulsive adherence to a, quote, script. Just then, Juergens' lawyer Minerva Graham Bishop comes in with Juergens' girlfriend, Cora Kennison. Oh, what?
So Minerva, which I love that name, Minerva Graham Bishop, attorney at law, is actor Terry Garr. She was Sandy in Tootsie. She played Phoebe's mom on Friends. She starred in 1989's Out Cold with Randy Quaid and John Lithgow. She was Helen Swanson, Mary's stepmom in Dumb and Dumber. Yes.
Yep.
When I discovered that, it felt like when we were at the Stanley Hotel for the Shining side of it. Remember, like we were like, "Ooh, this is where you got inspiration for The Shining," and da da da. And then that barista at the little coffee shop told us that Dumb and Dumber was shot there, like a bunch of scenes from Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, and we were like, "Oh."
But it was like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool. Red rum, okay." But then she's like Dumb and Dumber, and we're like, "Oh,
I know.
you've had an extra pair of gloves this entire time." Okay.
So Cora runs up and hugs and kisses Juergens. Benson brings up that she thought Juergens was single. Cora tells Benson that they've been living together for a fucking year.
Also, Cora is Maggie from 6 Feet Under.
God, that was the ending to that show fucking got me, man. It gets everybody. It was the best ending ever. So Minerva tells Cora to tell the detectives what she had told her. And then Juergens is like, tell them where I was Tuesday night. Cora tells them they were home together in bed on Tuesday night. He was next to her in bed the whole night. Yeah, right, Cora. Poor little thing. Ugh.
Back at the precinct, Benny, Staves, and Novak are on the other side of the glass, while Juergens, Cora, and Minerva are in the interrogation room. We see Cora holding onto Juergens the way a sloth wraps its arms around you if you're ever lucky enough to hold one. I would describe Cora's vibe as desperately affectionate.
Yeah.
Juergens is intensely talking to his lawyer and not returning any of Cora's energy. Benson tells Novak that Juergens is using Cora as an alibi. He shit-talked her the entire fucking date. He doesn't love her. This is the criminal version of a dude being in a relationship for a place to stay.
Yes.
And also when a dude badmouths his ex. Red flag.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I used to live in Las Vegas.
Red flag. Novak says all the evidence they have so far is circumstantial and isn't enough to convict Juergens of rape. Then she says they should have waited for him to attack Benson. And then they all receive it like, yeah, well, you know. He had waited weeks to attack the other women. He may have not even tried attacking Benson the night of the date. Novak can't indict, so they got to cut him loose, and she goes to walk out. And Staves is like, he's going to do it again. She fucking over her shoulder, then break his alibi. Hell yeah. Benson says she'll take a run at Cora. I did date her boyfriend. Cut to knock, knock, knock. Benson's at Cora's apartment, Dora. Cora tells Benson that... Cora tells Benson that Juergens is at the hospital. He told her to not let the police inside and to not talk to them at all. They were going to try and trick her. Benson asked Cora if Juergens told her they had gone on a date. And Cora, of course, doesn't believe her, but Benny's got a photo to prove it. A ponytailed Clark Kent had taken it from the bar. Cora is in I'm dating a narcissist denial and responds with there must be an explanation. Benny tells Cora there's a coffee shop around the corner. So follow me. At the coffee shop, Cora had gotten a coffee and 2 jelly donuts. Good for her. She's telling Benny how she met Juergens. Also, not a bite out of either donut. She's talking like they're not there. I would have been fucking hard housing that shit. But also, I understand that if they're her like emotional support donuts.
Yeah.
She says that she was beaten up by her last boyfriend and met Juergens when she had to go to the ER. He took care of her. She couldn't believe that, quote, a guy like that was interested in her. Benson asks her if Juergens has Cora do things in the bedroom that she doesn't want to do. And Cora gets flustered. I would do anything for Mike. I love him and he loves me. And Benny just stays super chill, but like concerned face and goes, then why does he date other women? She tells Benny, this is so sad. She says she's not as smart as him, that he just needs others to talk to, but he always comes home, and that's what matters. Benson plays her the tape of Juergens talking shit about her on his date with Rachel / Benson, going on about her clingy insecurity, but sticking around because she was just a good cook and cleaned, and how they didn't have any common interests. I'll tell you right now, when you're that far into a mindfuck like that, you are disconnected from the outside to a degree that I cannot rationally explain.
Yeah.
This was so hard not to deviate into this constantly throughout this episode because this woman was so undeniably relatable. Not my garbage cookie ex, but the one before that I got a restraining order against had me in this kind of chokehold, like this exact thing. And I know for a fact that if I would have heard that, if I would have been sitting with a detective and they would have said that to me, I'd be upset at first. I'd be like, yeah, oh my God, that'd be crazy, and panicking. But I would be spiraling for him specifically to explain it to me.
Yeah.
If I can look back, I would think that if I'm in that same scenario, right, I'd be like, oh, you know, you're on the speed dating thing. I was shown a photo by a detective, blah, blah, blah. I need you to explain it. I would have thought that I had leverage for him to treat me better. Like, see, I had your back even after that. Even after I found that out, I didn't say anything. Like, I know that feeling. And then he would spin it and be like, wow, you really do. You've really proven yourself to me, because he's still trying to manipulate, like, oh my God, I can't have her fucking, she is my alibi. And I need her to think that it's just the two of us, you know? And anyone listening from the outside would be like, this is insane. And I would know it deep down inside, but talk myself into accepting what he gave me. Then I'd move forward and try to show him I wasn't clingy and insecure. And we did have common interests by being and doing more of what he wanted. And it would actually push me further in. Like, all of this.
I know. Yeah.
When you are that woman in that situation, it just pushes you further and further in. And it's such a mind fuck. Even describing it right now and talking about it right now, there's like a level of shame.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh my God, I'm so weak. I was such a weak person at that time. But that's not true. I was so fucking mind fucked and manipulated.
Yeah. Ooh.
But for the sake of this storyline, the music swells. Benny tells her that she takes really good care of him, and in return, he's making her cover up the truth. Cora starts to cry and said he asked her to lie for him. When Benson asks Cora if Juergens was home Tuesday night, Cora said she's going to be sick and gets up from the table. Back at the precinct, Cora has come in to answer some questions with Benny. They're walking through the Tuesday night Cora had alibied him. Cora said Juergens took his gym bag out with him when he left that night. Benson tells her they need to find that bag. Cora's got to let them in to search the apartment. This girl's still convinced that he's a good man and doesn't believe that he raped those women. Benson tells her that if Juergens is innocent, then he would have nothing to hide. Benson then asks for Cora's consent to search the apartment, and she signs the paperwork for the search.
Now we're at Juergens' apartment. It's being searched. Toots and Stabler go through his gym bag that Cora said he brought with him. Inside, there are latex gloves, surgical tools, a magnifying glass, and baby powder. Stabler says that the dude's a doctor and knows that baby powder keeps him from sweating and therefore not leaving DNA behind. And then Toots, a cop for the Special Victims Unit, literally asks Stabler why Juergens is out raping women because he's, quote, smart, hot, and a good woman is waiting on him when he gets home. Stabler's like, attacking women is his way of venting anger and control. Come on now.
Right. Like, didn't you watch the training video that you get hired and you get your apron and you have to sit for a hand washing and rape isn't about sex training video that we fucking all watch?
Yeah.
What the fuck, dude?
I know.
I get it. It's for everybody else. It's for all the other fucking numbhead dum-dums watching going, but she was pretty and she's doing everything he wants. Why would he need to? He doesn't need to rape anybody. Like,
right. I know.
Are we still doing that?
A jury is our peers. These are these people that are on a... Okay.
Yeah.
Juergens comes in his scrubs and he's like, what the hell are you guys doing here? Toots tells him that they're arresting him again, cuffs him and reads him his rights. At the precinct, Benson asks Cora if she wants a ride home. Cora doesn't want one. So then Benny gives her her card with her cell phone number on it. And they do that SVU thing where they walk the people right in front of each other again.
Oh my God. This was...
I know. Juergens is walked off the elevator by Stabler and Toots right in front of Cora. He's like, sweetheart, I told you not to talk to them. And then Cora hugs him and apologizes to him. And Benson's like, Cora. And she's like pulling her off of him. Juergens says he isn't mad and tells Cora that he loves her and they'll be together soon. And then Toots is like, I wouldn't be so sure about that, and holds up the, quote, goodie bag with all of Jurgen's rape supplies that they found.
Yeah.
Cora's yelling, I don't understand, and Benson tries to calm her down, and Jurgens yells back, honey, I love you, remember that. I can explain everything. I'm sure you can. Benny tells Cora not to listen to him.
The quickness in which someone like this thinks of that, though, where it's like he knows how she's going to, he knows the control he has over
He knows
her.
that she's going to believe him over literally anything. There could be a picture of him standing over a dead body and she'd be like, that's photoshopped or something. You know what I mean?
To see her crossing paths with him. They're crossing paths.
Yeah.
And she sees him and is like, oh my God, he's going to be mad at me. But no, instead of being mad, he's like, I understand.
Yeah.
And we're here for each
and
other.
You're like just a little dum-dum.
Yep. Because he's thinking 3 steps ahead.
Yeah.
She feels guilty. She's going to be grateful that I'm so forgiving that she'll support me even further moving forward. And I mean, they tricked you, honey. It's okay. You're not that bright. It's okay.
Yeah.
And she'll just be grateful.
Yeah. Now we're in the chambers of motherfucking Judge Donnelly.
She's a judge now.
So Novak and Minerva are there. Minerva has filed a motion. Apparently, Cora had no right to consent to the search of the apartment since it's not technically her apartment. Novak says that a roommate / living girlfriend can consent to a search of the common areas, which is where the bag was found. Minerva shows Donnelly the lease to Cora's apartment. She has her own apartment. She gets her mail there and is registered to vote there, etc. At Jurgen's apartment, Cora's classified as an overnight guest and doesn't have the standing to give an authorized search. Novak argues that they would have had to search his apartment anyways and they would have found it. She says that Jurgens carries around these surgical tools to pick locks. And because he's a surgeon, it's a cover for like burglary. He's not going to have burglary tools, you know? He's going to use his shit he would have anyways. Minerva says that they're tools for his job. And then Novak's like, look, I ain't playing fast and loose, okay? I know Jurgens isn't dumb enough to carry around obvious burglary tools. And then Donnelly asks about the ski mask, and Novak admits it wasn't recovered, but the baby powder was. And Minerva's like, dude, baby powder is used to soothe his skin. He washes his hand all the time. He's a fucking surgeon. Novak's like, dude, Donnelly, you cannot take this seriously. Please. And then Donnelly says, well, I take the Constitution seriously.
Ew.
And she fucking throws out the search. Minerva asks if the rape charges can be dismissed since the bag was the only evidence and the search has been thrown out. Donnelly is leaving that up to the grand jury and tells Novak that she has 72 hours to get an indictment or Jurgens walks.
Back at the precinct, Novak is giving Benson and Stabler the update. They need to start over. And she's got new warrants to search Jurgens' house, car, and hospital locker to find the ski mask. Stabler points out that the mask is probably long fucking gone. Does Novak have to walk you through fucking everything? Prove he bought one.
Right.
Go do the boring paperwork stuff. Prove that he bought one. Novak then tells Benson to talk to Cora and talk her into giving a statement. Benny thinks that's going to be fucking tough, but Novak says she's got to try. She's the first witness at the grand jury the next day. And then I'm sitting back here well informed with experience on the matter. Girl, he has had a chance to talk to her. I already know how this is going to go.
Right. Yeah.
So Benny goes to Cora's apartment, bang, bang, bang on the door, but Cora doesn't answer. The door is unlocked, so Benson
Clang,
goes
clang,
in.
clang goes the trolley. Okay.
Oh my God. That was beautiful, though. It's really, your tone was incredible. Ring, ring, ring goes the bell. Okay, so the door's unlocked. Benny goes in, announces herself, like, hey, Cora, it's me, your best bud, Olivia Rachel Benson. The place is fucking trashed, and Benson finds Cora passed out and unresponsive with a liquor bottle next to her. Benny calls for an ambulance and keeps trying to wake her up, but the way she's doing it, just knowing that this woman is an actor acting like she's passed out, and Benny's like jostling her face and slapping her a little bit. Like this actress, she flinches like, Jesus. At the hospital, we find out that Cora's blood alcohol was 0.35. That's over 4 times the legal limit. Oof. Or that's about 4 times, because 0.08, 0.36 would be 4 times. It's 4 times the legal limit. That would kill most people. She's still unconscious, and the doctor tells Benson that Cora's lucky she didn't die and that her body shows the signs of chronic alcohol abuse. Not only that, but she has symptoms of an eating disorder. The doctor diagnoses Cora with long-term binge drinking and bulimia. They can't treat her there because there's no room, and there's also not a program there for the care she needs. She needs to be in an inpatient care facility.
So cut to a little bit later, Benson's in Cora's hospital room. She starts to talk about Cora's drinking and bulimia, and Cora says that she doesn't drink all the time, but she was just so upset about Juergens. Benson tells her that if she doesn't stop binge drinking and puking, she could die, and she can't really hide it anymore. Cora says that Juergens knows about her problems and he was trying to help her, and now she doesn't have anyone. Oh, he wasn't trying to help you, honey. Benson tells her that she can get her into a treatment program, and Cora agrees to go, which is huge. Just then, Cora's mom, Virginia, comes in, and it's that one lady I figured you'd know her.
She was in 6 Feet Under as well. She's actually been acting for over 65 years. She was in The Birds, Serpico, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Alien, The Witches of Eastwick. She's been in a ton of stuff.
She always plays a great lady freaking out about something.
Yes. Yeah. She does this role awesome.
Yeah.
A panicked mother.
So she comes in and Cora looks less than enthused. So the hospital called her and she came to take Cora home. Benny's like, well, actually, Cora's going to go to treatment. And Virginia's like, I'm sorry, who are you? When she finds out that Benson's a detective, she immediately asks what fucking Juergens did to her, to Cora. Benson tells Virginia about the rape charges against Juergens and that Cora has to testify against him. Virginia calls Juergens poison, and then she lays into Cora, who's in a fucking hospital bed. I told you not to see him, and, you're never going to see him again. Cora's kind of crying, and I'm like, this is a grown woman who's in pain, and what the fuck,
I know.
Mom?
In the same breath, though, dude, she is estranged from her daughter because of this guy. She's watched all of this happening.
She's like, enough. Yeah.
She's helpless. And it's like, you're sitting in the hospital. You've spiraled into this.
Like, we're done. We're done with this.
What more do you need?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's scary. So I do get that. Yeah.
God, remember when I was like that with garbage cookies? When you were at your mom's house after that one night? And I was like, we're fucking done with this. Please. Remember?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Was I done yet? I don't remember now.
Yeah, that was when you were done.
That was when I was done. Okay. I was like, that wasn't the only night I ran to my mom's in the middle of the night, but okay.
So Virginia wants to take Cora home to Wilmington, but Benson's like, no, she can't. She's like the main witness for the grand jury tomorrow. At the precinct, Benson comes in and asks about updates from Novak. Stabler tells her that Juergens was indicted on all 3 rape charges. But Benson doesn't look happy. She's worried about Cora. Apparently, she had a hard time at the grand jury, and she still has to share her testimony at trial. She's super fragile. And then Stabler says that it's good that Benson got Cora to go to rehab, or he's going to get Cora to go to rehab. But Benny tells him that Virginia won't let Cora go to treatment. She's convinced that she can take care of Cora. Just then, Virginia walks in, totally upset. Cora is fucking missing. She disappeared when they were waiting for the train at Penn Station. Cora had to go to the bathroom, and it took a while, and Virginia thought maybe she was barfing, so she checked on her, but Cora was gone. Virginia thinks she used the bathroom excuse to run away and see Juergens. So Stabler's like, we got to run to Rikers, because that's probably where she is. At the jail, the jailer tells Benson and Stabler that Juergens is with a visitor, but he doesn't know if it's Cora. They're in the fucking chapel. Fuck, Benny and Stabs are let in, and they're in there getting fucking married. And then Benson's like, you son of a bitch. And Stabler tells Juergens that he only did it because he saw her name on the witness list, but it won't stop her from being able to testify. Cora says, yeah, they can. I'm his wife now. I can't be forced to testify. And then I thought, what an odd law. You know what I mean?
It is like an odd law. Yeah. I wonder what it's rooted in.
It's probably rooted in because women were property back then. And so they were an extension of yourself, Oh,
yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. I bet that is true.
I don't know if that's true. I didn't look it up, but I just thought of that right now. I don't know.
It makes sense. It makes sense. Because women were property. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Benson's like, nice try. Since the rapes were committed before the wedding, Cora can't hide behind spousal privilege. Juergens is probably like, fuck. Juergens is taken away. Benson and Stabler talk to Cora about what the fuck she's doing.
I also like how, even at the end when they're in the courtroom, they all act like you can't, like, you're not allowed to lie now. You're not, it's like people are gonna lie. They're gonna lie.
Do. Yeah.
I don't get it.
The lawyers are there to help you lie.
Yeah.
within the legal parameters of lying. You know what I mean?
Our country runs on the honor system. And if we don't have that, then what do we have?
So Benny asks her about rehab. They're like, are you going still? Cora thinks Juergens will help her. Benson tells her that he's literally never helped her before. He lets Cora drink so that he can control her and that he married her to shut her up.
Yep.
Don't you know that he's using you? And then Cora yells at Benson, which it was nice to hear her yell, even if it was at Benson. I was like, can you just direct that at Juergens? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Cora thinks that Benson is the one using her. Benny pretended to be her friend to frame Juergens, then accuses Stabler of planting Juergens' prints on the rape kit that was found in the gym bag.
And this is all shit that she is regurgitating because she wants what he is saying to make sense. Mm-hmm. And Benny's looking at her like, the shit you're saying is so far-fetched, but in her mind, it makes...
She's like, you're all against us.
Yes.
You're all against us. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Stabler tells her that she is the one that told them where to find the bag. Juergens left their bed to rape 3 women, and then she screams in his face to shut up. Benson tells Cora that she knows somewhere inside of her that he's guilty, and then Cora says that she doesn't want him to be. There it is. Benny tells her that she knows it's hard to face, but she has to testify. And then Cora says, you want me to send my husband to prison? First of all, you're... whatever.
What? First of all, what? You've been married for 30 seconds?
I know. It's so weird that it's kind of weird and annoying when somebody goes from like boyfriend to husband in like 4 seconds and they're just like, my husband. My husband. I don't know. Benson tells Cora that she just wants her to tell the truth. Is that a lot to ask in this country? Jeez.
Everything will go better for you if you just tell the truth. We've seen it time.
If you're not guilty, you have nothing to hide, says the people who have been imprisoned for clever lying by other people.
In the trial, Cora's on the stand. Juergens is looking at her with a little sweet smile while Novak is questioning her. Also, Donnelly is the presiding judge. Yes, honey. Mm-hmm. Cora admits to lying about the night of one of the rapes because Juergens told her to, but she doesn't know where he went. Juergens' lawyer questions Cora now. Cora says that she loves Juergens. He wasn't violent and he didn't hurt her. When asked if she thinks Juergens raped the 3 women, Cora says she doesn't know. Minerva's like, well, then why are you here, like on the stand? And Cora says that SVU and Novak told her that she didn't have a choice to testify. Novak calls out Minerva for leading Cora when she asks her why she's doing this to the man she loves.
What a bitch.
Judge fucking Donnelly asks Cora if she wants to take a break, which she totally does. Mm-hmm. So Donnelly calls for a recess until the next day. Benny's frustrated. Novak's frustrated. We're frustrated. This shit is not on Cora, by the way.
Yeah.
Cora goes over to Juergens. She cries and tells him that she's so sorry. Juergens tells her that he loves her, and Novak shoots him with a death stare. Mm-hmm. Music swell. We see Benson asleep, her little head on a pillow in her bed. Phone rings. We just hear Benny's side, obviously. And we know that it's Cora. Mm-hmm. He called you? What did he say? How much did you have to drink? Calm down. I'm on my way. She didn't say calm down like that. She was very sweet.
Yeah.
So obviously we can surmise that on the other end of the line, Juergens had called Cora. She's drunk.
Very upset.
And she needs Benson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Benson then calls Stabler to get him to have an ambulance sent to Cora and to call Rikers and get Juergens put on suicide watch. Oh, cool. So he called her and threatened to kill himself. Got it.
Yeah.
Fucking Benson burying cherries in the rain up to Cora's apartment. Medics are in the ambulance doing CPR. Cora's in respiratory arrest. They intubate her and get a pulse, and Benny rides with her to the hospital in the ambulance. Mm-hmm. I mean, Cora's like not in good shape.
No. At the hospital, Benny and Virginia are talking to a doctor. Cora's still intubated. Her eyes are open and blinking, but it's only a brainstem reflex. The doctor says her heart is still beating, but her brain was deprived of oxygen for too long. She has brain damage that she will never recover from. She doesn't respond to commands or feel pain. And even though her eyes are open and moving, she can't see or hear them at all. The doctors tell Virginia that Cora's system was weakened from her bulimia, so when she had some drinks, it doubled the impact of the alcohol. Oh, God. Virginia asks when Cora will be better. The music gets all swelly, and the doctor tells her that Cora isn't going to get better. There really isn't anything they can do besides give her supportive care and keep Cora comfortable. And Virginia's pissed and she's like, you guys, what you're saying is you're not going to do shit. And I mean, she's just upset, and we get it.
Yeah, I mean, she has nowhere to put this anger. This fucking dude is
he's like ruined.
Sitting in a cell, and her whole life is ruined. Yeah.
And then Virginia tells Benson that this happened. Cora drank because they were making her testify. And then Benson tells her that Cora drank because A, she's an alcoholic, and B, Juergens told her that he was going to kill himself. He set her off. Virginia's like, my daughter's dead, but this fucking piece of shit isn't. You can protect Cora. Virginia wants to take Cora home, and the doctor tells her it's not advisable, but she doesn't care. She wants her to come home. At the courthouse, Benny and Novak do a little walk and talk. Benny says that Virginia wants to take Cora home and keep her body alive because she can't accept the diagnosis. She can't take care of Cora in that. Oh, God.
Right.
Novak thinks Virginia feels guilty because they weren't close for years. Benson feels guilty because she feels like she pushed Cora to testify. And then Novak's like, well, suffering Olympics, I subpoenaed her, so.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Well, don't forget, me too.
He's like, Virginia feels guilty. And Benny's like, me probably more. Novak's like, well, me a little bit more than you guys.
Stabler pops his head and he's like, Kathy left, right, you guys?
Yeah. I missed the twins' birthday. Benny wants to...
They're like, are you doing our theme song?
It's like... Okay, Benny wants to know how this will affect the trial. Novak says that the defense can ask for a mistrial. Benny says that it sucks that Juergens was stopped by corrections officers before he could off himself. I'm like, jeez.
Yeah, that was an intense thing to say.
Yeah. A staff member comes over and tells Novak that Donnelly needs to see her now. And Novak's like, this isn't good news. Gulp.
Yeah, she's like, Mom wants to talk to you. Fuck.
Mm-hmm. In Donnelly's chambers, Minerva and Juergens are there. Juergens, he's such a fucking piece of shit.
He's a Costco tub of hand and body lotion. That's all I would ever say his name. Juergens.
That's what I put on my sensitive legs after I get out of the shower and the rest of my body. This motherfucker wants to remove Cora's feeding tube already. It's like, bro, she's not going to get any better. You know that, so you don't have to worry about her fucking saying anything. So just fucking shut up.
But we find out.
Novak's like, he does not have the right to do that. And Minerva says that he actually does have the right to do that because Cora is his wife. He's actually her next of kin, not her mom.
They legit have been married for, what, less than a week?
2 days or something.
It's insane.
Novak says that the wedding was a sham and that he only married Cora to keep her from testifying. And it's also like, it doesn't matter why it happened. It's the law now. You know what I mean? Like, come on, Novak, just find a different thing.
Exactly.
Minerva says that Cora chose to marry Juergens and Novak forced her to testify. Novak says that this is to shut Cora up forever and he's only asking this out of retaliation. And Minerva says that it's his choice and it's actually an act of love. Donnelly asks Juergens why he's making this decision. So Juergens says he's spoken with Cora's neurosurgeon and she's in a chronic vegetative state. She will never recover. And he says he doesn't want Cora to suffer. And then Novak's like, do not let him do this. Donnelly says that the law is very clear and Juergens is Cora's next of kin. And it will be very difficult, but Virginia will have to accept that. But she has no standing. As Cora's husband, he has the right to make this decision over her mother. Ooh.
Yes. Cut to Stabe's butt cheek in a desk at the... Cut to Stabe's butt cheek in a desk at the precinct while Novak tells him and Benny about her meeting.
Yeah.
And Stabes cannot believe it. So a rapist has more rights than a mother. In this case, yeah. Juergens is getting what he wants, which is ultimate control. Benson thinks that Juergens is the wrong person to make the right decision, and she doesn't want Cora to suffer either. She's never getting better, and she deserves to die with dignity. And Munch busts through the wall like a Rat King Kool-Aid man. It's like, it doesn't matter, you guys. It's not up to us to decide when life ends. It's not. He gives a whole slippery slope argument of Munch proportions. Novak has to follow the law, but she needs to find out what Cora would want, which is kind of tough because she's non-responsive. Stabler thinks her mom would be the best person to ask. I don't necessarily agree. I adore my mother, but ask Gabe what I would want before asking my mom.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
At the hospital, Novak's back in Cora's room with Virginia, who thinks Cora's trying to communicate and fighting for her life. This is really heartbreaking. I'm not going to get into all this, but I was with a friend for a couple weeks before she passed, when she overdosed and was on life support. And there was so much of that conversation, like these things that were reflexes and stuff.
Yeah,
and
I can imagine.
Us seeing, her heart rate went up when her brother walked in the room and all this stuff. And the doctors were like, there is no healing from
Yeah.
But this is very understandable that a mom is
looking for all the signs.
She can't accept this.
Yeah.
Yes. Novak asks if they had ever talked about what Cora would want in this situation, and they hadn't. Virginia goes on to say, but I know my daughter, and she's not a quitter. Not what that is, but I'm not here to correct you. You're grieving. Virginia tells Novak about Cora's dad, who, when Cora was 8, was given 6 months to live. She'd go to the hospital every day and sit by his bed, telling him not to give up. She was 8. He hung on for 2 years and said that it was Cora who gave him that strength. Virginia knows Cora would want to fight, but needs to stop Juergens. Novak tells Virginia she can appeal Donnelly's decision. And Virginia's like, she's not going to listen to me. I don't have any legal standing. It's just, I'm at a loss. And Novak, out of the side of her mouth, is like, more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to get your way. There's more than one way to get people to listen to you. There's more than,
Yeah.
And so we know she's
like, talk to the press.
You know who will? You know who else can move the needle? The press. It's the newspaper. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. I didn't. Plop. Branch ploppily plops a newspaper with Cora's photo and the headline, "Mom to Rapist, Don't Kill My Baby." Boom, right on her desk. Virginia went to the papers. Novak's like, oopsie doopsie, but how is this my fault? Fucking Branch. You gave her the bologna and she made the sandwich.
I know.
Oh, boy. That is the most grandpa shit. Novak is quoted in the story because she's trying to deny, but it literally is in the story that Novak told Virginia to publicize.
Yeah.
Casey Novak, she works in this department. She told me who to call. She gave me this phone number. Novak and Branch go back and forth about the law versus the right thing versus what's really Novak's business, etc. It's so hard because as much as the letter of the law matters, and I agree with that, and I believe in that ish, so does the complex nuance of a person's psyche,
Right.
Because they're arguing all of these different things as to how she ended up here and what was her choice and what wasn't. And I just know that this is one of those things that, in generations beyond ours, they're gonna look back and go, none of that shit was taken into consideration. This is insane that they couldn't figure out whatever thing we have in place now, which is what I really hope for. But
yeah,
there's so much complex nuance to right and wrong, black and white, the way our brains work and how they can be manipulated. It's wild. But so they're interrupted by this staffer dude who had popped his head in before and then he came in again. He's like, 2 appearances, 1 episode. Hello.
Yeah.
But Novak, you're going to want to turn on the TV. Then he moonwalked out of the room and we're like, don't.
But we were actually like, keep it up. Keep it up.
Keep it up. You're doing great. You're really bringing a lot of flair to your scenes. He's not back until 2019, I believe, is the next time he's in the series as a different character. So they're like, okay, fine, you can
Did you
come
actually
back.
look him up?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
He didn't have a bunch of stuff, but he does come back in 2019 as somebody else. So they turn the TV on. Virginia's standing there being interviewed, news cameras, etc. She's surrounded by press and protesters fighting for Cora's rights. Protect the disabled is the slogan. Branch tells Novak that she has to go talk to Virginia to convince her to try the case in court, not in the court of public opinion. Bologna sandwich.
In the hospital, Novak and Virginia do a walk and talk to Cora's room. Lawyers from around the country are calling and offering to help, and Virginia is super grateful to Novak for telling her to fight back. Novak tells her that she didn't mean for her to go to the national news. Oh, I'm sure.
Oh.
She said that this should be a family decision, not a public free-for-all. What did you then why did you tell her? Okay.
We know that you told her that.
Yeah. Virginia says that this actually has nothing to do with her or Cora. People are angry. They don't want the government to decide who lives or who dies. So they walk into Cora's room and fucking Juergens is in there with Minerva. Apparently the visit was approved by Donnelly.
Juergens. I keep trying to like mash their names up. Minerva, Juergens, Generva. It's that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jurgerva.
Virginia is pissed. McGurgans.
I love that place. They have awesome fried pickles.
That would be, yep.
Try McGurgan's fried gherkins.
They'll girt ya.
No.
Can't hit them all.
No.
That's you being sucked off into a different friendship because you can't barely ever see me again after that. Okay. That would never happen, ever.
It would never. I would never leave.
So, yeah, Virginia is pissed and she doesn't want him anywhere near Cora. Juergens tells Virginia that he loves Cora and knows that she would not want to live like this. Virginia says that he doesn't know shit. He gets upset and stands up and says that he has lived with her every day for the last year and she hadn't called once since they lived together. Virginia says this because Juergens pulled them apart and she says she has always loved Cora and she's so upset she has to leave the room. Novak is pissed that Minerva didn't tell her that Juergens was coming to the hospital. Minerva says that permission isn't needed for her client to see his wife. The doctor comes in with an injunction. The court granted Virginia an emergency hearing in regards to Cora's wishes about removing the feeding tube. At the trial, on the stand, Juergens says that he and Cora talked about this end of life shit and he promised her that he would never let her live like that. You know, feeding tube, how she is right now. Minerva makes him elaborate about how they came to that discussion. He says that one night they were driving back from the beach and they both saw a terrible accident in front of them. A drunk driver ran a stop sign and T-boned a couple in a convertible. Juergens told Cora to call 911 and he ran over to help because he's a doctor. Minerva asks him about how bad the accident was and Juergens says that a man was dead and that a girl had severe head trauma. She wasn't responding and all he could do was clear her airway to breathe. He heard Cora crying and she asked him if the girl was going to make it, but he told her that if she did, she would probably be a, quote, vegetable. Juergens says that in the moment, Cora made him promise that he would never let her live like that. This whole time, Virginia is fucking seething. First of all, you can't fucking prove that that conversation happened. Anyways,
right.
She stands up and calls Juergens a liar and a bastard.
But that's why I'm sitting there going like, wow, what a convenient, perfectly laid out conversation for this scenario. And we're just going to sit here in court and believe it.
I know. Virginia stands up and she's pissed and calls Juergens a liar and a bastard and saying that she won't let him kill her baby. She will not be quiet, so Donnelly clears the court and goes to recess. After court reconvenes, Donnelly decides that Juergens' testimony provided sufficient evidence that Cora would not want to live in a vegetative state, and Juergens is allowed to remove Cora's feeding tube. At the hospital, Minerva waits outside Cora's room. Novak walks up to the door as Virginia and Juergens are walking out. Virginia walks out and doesn't speak to anyone. Juergens tells Minerva that Cora went, quote, peacefully, just like she wanted. And then Benson comes up and thanks Juergens for letting Virginia hold Cora's hand. Juergens tells Benson and Novak to do him the favor of having the death certificate expedited so he can get his life insurance claim processed. What? Benson says, I should have known. How much are you going to get? He says he's going to get $1.5 million. He added her to his policy right after they got married. Wow. Benson calls him out saying that he knew he wasn't going to kill himself, but knew that Cora wouldn't live without him, and that's why she fucking got all fucked.
Yep.
Juergens smarmly tells his lawyer that he'll see her tomorrow to work on his appeal. And then he smiles as he's led away. Oh, what a fucking barf bag.
Yeah. Bag of barf.
Later, Cora's casket is being loaded into a hearse. Virginia asks Coroner Warner if there's anything else that she needs to sign. Coroner Warner says she doesn't, but does tell Virginia that she has the results of the autopsy. Cora's brain damage was irreversible. She was not going to recover. Virginia seems to understand. And then Benson comes over and because everything was such bullshit, like I think they're just giving her information to know that like you don't have to hang on to anything. Obviously you're going to, but like this stuff, this here are the facts. This is real.
Well, and it can bring a little bit of closure and relief, even though this is all she can give her to be compassionate.
Yeah. Then Benson comes over and tells Virginia that there's something else she should know. She found the article about the accident that Juergens was referring to in his testimony. Cora did tell a reporter that what happened was a tragedy and that she would never want to live like that. So Juergens actually told the truth in that moment. And Virginia thanks Benson and leaves. And that's Toyota. That's the end of the episode.
Toyota. Caption Max.
Yeah. Barf. Anyways.
Elizabeth Kendall grew up in Utah. Her family was Mormon-ish, but nothing serious. She started school at Utah State in 1969 and was doing well before getting pregnant with her daughter Molly. She and Molly's dad were briefly married, but by the time Molly was 2, that was done.
Okay.
Liz felt ashamed and at fault because that's what we do to women. Liz and her friend Angie decided they both wanted a fresh start and were going to move to Seattle in the fall of 1969. She got a secretarial gig in the university medical department, got settled with Molly, and was loving it. Like, she got to Seattle and loved it the second she got there. One October evening, Liz and friends went for a night out. She hadn't been living there that long. They ended up at the Sandpiper Tavern, where she met a tall, well-dressed, charming guy. Initially, she thought he was British. He was talking in this fancy, posh accent, but she realized he was putting it on, and she found that to be fun and charming. They danced and talked all night, hitting it off. She had said, quote, "The chemistry between us was incredible. I was already planning the wedding and naming the kids. He was telling me that he missed having a kitchen because he loved to cook. Perfect. My prince." Liz ended up drinking a little too much, so this guy offered to drive her home. They stopped to pick up Molly at her sitter's and went back to Liz's place. He ended up sleeping over, but was a total gentleman, and she woke up to him making breakfast and playing with Molly in the morning. She was absolutely smitten with Ted Bundy. You just gave me everything I was looking for the way I wrote that. I was like, either you were going to hear Liz Kendall and you were going to go, oh my God, or
you know
me.
You know me.
You were gonna, yeah.
Oh my God. That's who his girlfriend was, right? He had a girlfriend for a while.
So this chaser is mostly based on the memoir written by Liz called The Phantom Prince, My Life with Ted Bundy. It was published in 1981, and the book inspired the Zac Efron movie Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile.
Yeah.
In 2020, Liz released an updated version of the book with a new introduction and a new chapter written by her daughter, Molly. She kept the original book the same, but made it clear that her point of view had drastically shifted over the years. In her new introduction, she says, quote, "I still cared deeply for Ted when I wrote the original book. It took years of work for me to accept who he was and what he had done. I still felt lingering shame that I had loved Ted Bundy. It was healing for me when women started telling their stories of sexual violence and assault as part of the Me Too movement. I could relate to keeping experiences secret for fear of being judged."
Okay, that had to have been fucking insane. Okay.
So remember, we're attaching this to an episode about a woman who is completely mind-fucked by a manipulative, sociopathic rapist.
When we hear about serial killers and their wives and stuff who just can't believe it, I hate inside how much I fucking can relate.
I know.
And what we were talking about during the episode, you know what I mean? Like, could that be me?
Yeah. And I mean, I've never had to process, obviously, what Liz has had to process. And she was very gracious in the book about, like, just really being like, this is not a story I'm not looking for anybody to feel sorry for me. I'm just telling my story. The true victims are these fucking women that he abducted, assaulted, murdered, their families. The ripple effect is insane. I mean, I'm not going to paraphrase everything that her book said, but I wanted to make that really clear that she had a great awareness of that. But yeah, there are so many things that are relatable to anyone who's been in a relationship. Because set the murders on another side, like, he's a fucking sociopath. Like, I just read this other book called Sociopath about this woman who, it's a memoir that she wrote as a sociopath. And it's wild. The way she described things was later on the way Bundy described things internally. So, like, I can't diagnose anybody, obviously. But anyway, back to 1969. These two quickly got serious. Her parents, friends, Molly, everyone loved Ted. Bundy kept his place off campus. They lived separately, but spent most of his nights with Liz and Molly. They talked endlessly, cooked dinners together. He loved to do the wine pairing. They spent time with friends. I'm going to fast forward through the courting, but to her, he was charming, lovely, patient, funny, intelligent Ted. Her perception of him was built on this incredible person that he presented. I mean, his first impression with anybody, people loved him. And he had a lot of friends. And later on, you know, when he's being interviewed and studied and all this shit, like, he does not fit the profile of what we would think a serial killer to be. You know, this was the most in plain sight dude. And he used that to his advantage in his murders. It wasn't very long into dating when the conversation around marriage came up. They knew that's the direction they were going, so they went and got a marriage license. They made the rounds to announce their plans. Liz's parents were extremely happy for them. Then Liz and Ted went to dinner at his parents' house. Before the young couple left, Ted went into the other room with his mom. He hadn't mentioned anything the entire dinner, and she's just waiting for his lead to tell them and for them to be excited. So when he went to the other room with his mom, Liz knew he was telling her their plans, but after the conversation, they left and he shared nothing of it and acted off. And I'm like, oh, Ted, are you a serial killer with mom shit? How original. But he did. He had resentment toward his mom, all of that, the basics. And she never knew what the conversation was between him and his mom. But they continued as they had. But then prior to a visit from her parents, Liz suggested they move his clothes out of the closet at her place because she didn't like the implication. Like they were engaged, yeah, but she just didn't like her parent. You know, this was fucking 1969. He told her she was being childish and therefore wasn't ready to get married and tore up the marriage license in front of her. She felt terrible for causing that and delaying their wedding. Like this was her fault.
Yeah.
This is such a gaslighter move. So she's like, oh my God, I need to grow up. You know, that was really shitty that I did that, that I delayed our plans. She later found out that he had been lying to her about law school, which he said he had been trying to get into, but she did the smallest amount of digging and was like, oh my God, he's fucking lying. She was livid, but then ended up feeling bad for him. He was so full of shame about not getting in, so he had to lie. Poor guy.
Poor little guy. Jeez.
Yeah. One of the only instances of violence Liz recalls coming from Bundy was after she and Molly came back home from Christmas in Utah in 1970. They went to his place and saw that he had a new TV, appliances, things that she knew he couldn't afford. And she knew he would steal once in a while and had a friend who had gone to jail for it. And she fucking hated it. She hated that he would steal, especially knowing that he didn't need to when he was working a decent job and he would still do shit like this. So she got mad and told him he was nothing but a thief and she was about to leave. He grabbed her arm and said, quote, if you ever tell anyone about this, I'll break your fucking neck. This is like, he didn't so much as raise his voice at her. And she was fucking shocked and she left. She was like, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long before he was at her house crying, apologizing, saying he didn't know what was wrong with him. And then they had a really open, like, I'm heavy quotes, a really open, honest conversation.
Yeah.
She asked about gifts he had given her and Molly, and he admitted to stealing them. She said she'd rather have no presents than stolen ones. And so this conversation is an example of you caught me doing something. My mask slipped and I'm going to give this illusion of being really honest and vulnerable. And you like that vulnerability, so you're going to take it.
Yeah.
And she did. Liz and Molly ended up moving closer to Bundy, which threw off the couple's norm. Since he lived down the street, he didn't stay over as much. He also wouldn't show up when he said he would, or he'd show up unannounced. Liz was okay with that. Poor guy. He was so busy. He was studying for his LSATs. He'd finally gotten that far in school. Well, he took the test twice and got shit scores both times. Then Liz got pregnant, but they had an abortion because there was no way she could put her fiance/boyfriend through law school with a new baby because that was the plan. She was going to put him through law school. She had an abortion. Ted was very supportive, all of that. Bundy had applied to several schools and was accepted to Utah State. He declined knowing that he'd get an offer from a better school. And then he received 5 rejection letters. So
5.
He'd applied to a bunch and was like, Utah accepted me, not good enough, and waited and got in nowhere. Fast forward, he finally got into Washington State, which he graduated from with honors in 1972. So at this point, they've been dating for a couple of years. Any of us who are familiar with this pattern know at this point the level of delusion that Liz finds herself in. She's in a cycle dependent on his loving support and approval. This cycle for me was most prevalent in the relationship I had with the restraining order dude.
Yeah.
Mainly because when things were good at this point in Liz's relationship with Bundy, he would do things like play with her and her feelings, you know, just like out of boredom almost. That's what I gathered from reading it. Like one occasion in 1972, Liz came home from a long family visit in Utah and had told Ted she was too tired to go out that night. But then she changed her mind. He's like, oh, sorry, I'm going on a date with someone else. Like they'd been dating already. Like they were together. She spun out and drank alone until she passed out, which she did more and more to cope with these cycles. She ended up going to his place the next morning, letting herself in and searching it. She found a note from a girl in the trash. It was clear he hadn't been there all night. And then he showed up in some random car she'd never seen before. This just fueled jealous insecurity for her. And she went home beyond upset, drank more, passed out longer. When he came to her place later, she was an inconsolable mess, screaming, desperate, and she broke up with him. But then 2 weeks later, she gave in to go to dinner with him. He had been calling, apologizing, all that stuff, and she wouldn't talk to him, but then decided that she would go to dinner with him. The reparative part of the cycle inevitably happened. He showered her with regret and love and begged for her to come back. He can't believe what a sabotager he was. She's his entire life, being Molly's father figure, etc., etc. Things were never quite the same in Liz's eyes after this breakup, though. If she asked him questions or attempted to talk about anything he wasn't interested in talking about, he would accuse her of being naggy, clingy, and insecure. Ted would act indifferent until she seemed too far away. Then he'd cry and beg and apologize for not being there, and she'd go back. Yeah. He'd be great for a month and then slowly go back to lame shit until she got sick of it and it would start over. In the meantime, over the next couple of years, Bundy was going to night school, getting involved in local politics. He was super Republican and he was working a great job. This made her struggle a lot. She wanted to appeal to him the way she used to, so he would give her the kind of love she used to get from him. So one of the things she did was get new hobbies so she could seem more independent. Everything that she was doing, nothing she did was for herself. It was to appeal to him.
To impress him and appeal to, in some sort of way. Any sort of way.
Any sort of way. To get back what she wanted, what made her feel the best, you know? Mm-hmm. She caught him stealing on several more occasions, but finally gave up saying anything about it. What was the point? He would just get mad at her, call her a nag, cry about being a fuck up, and ultimately do it again. And she was too tired to deal with it. That's another key point, I think.
Yeah.
Now you know that he's doing fucked up shit, and it's like
you start to like change your own values. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's like, well, what's the point of saying anything?
Yeah.
I know that it's going to go in a loop, whereas in the beginning she wanted him to change. Like, don't steal. What are you doing? But
right.
You know, and now she's at a point where it's like, well, I just won't say anything about the stealing because it doesn't fucking matter. I'm going to go through a few bullet points here. 1974, January 4th, university student Karen Sparks is beaten in her home so badly she suffered permanent brain damage. February 1st, university student Linda Ann Healy disappeared from her place just a few blocks from Liz's house. The only evidence of anything left behind was some blood on her pillow, and her bed was perfectly made.
Jeez.
March 12th, Donna Gail Manson, student, disappeared from her college campus in Olympia. April 17th, Susan Rancourt disappeared from her campus in Ellensburg. May 6th, Roberta Kathleen Parks disappeared from her campus in Corvallis. June 1st, Brenda Ball disappeared from South Seattle after being out at the Flame Tavern. June 11th, Georgianne Hawkins, student, disappeared walking back to her sorority house from her boyfriend's place. Again, only 3 blocks from Liz's house. In the first 7 months of 1974, there were 8 murders in that area. Liz, like every other woman, was terrified. She could see herself in all these victims. In fact, most of them looked like her. Liz and Ted weren't seeing each other nearly as much. He had taken a job in Olympia, 2 hours away. They would still talk every day and see each other a couple times a week, but didn't sleep together nearly as often. And Liz decided he was probably seeing someone else. She wished she was more like her, which her wasn't someone she knew. So he would love her again. To reconnect, the two decided to go on a rafting trip to Lake Sammamish State Park in early July. They do this trip. Some weird shit happens there too, where she's like, shit with him is a little off, but then he can write shit off. You know, it's just what he always did. On July 14th, Janice Ott and Denise Mashand, both college students, disappeared from Lake Sammamish State Park 3 hours apart from one another. This time, there's a description from witnesses in the area. A report came in that several witnesses had overheard Janice Ott talking to a well-dressed man, smooth talker with his arm in a sling, who had asked her to help put his sailboat on his bronze Volkswagen. Yeah. He had introduced himself as Ted, which I'm like, it's just interesting. And we know that this guy was an egomaniac, you know, just based on like him representing himself and all of that shit that he pulled. But using your real name.
Yeah.
Just, Liz thought the pics of the victim in the paper looked very similar to the ones who had gone missing in the university district. She also thought the description of the suspect was so fucking crazy. She called Ted right away to talk about how absolutely wild it was.
Right.
It's obviously not him. And the sketch that had gone out of Ted didn't look like anybody she knew. They both just talked about how nuts it was that this had happened. But then on July 22nd, a friend from work showed her a new sketch that had come out. It was so jarring because it looked exactly like her boyfriend. She went to her friend Angie, her friend that she had moved to Seattle with, in kind of a panic, saying that the similarities in looks were freaking her out. Also that there was a bunch of coincidences with timing and where he had been, about people saying the suspect had a British accent. The cast the suspect was wearing also stood out. Years before, she had found plaster of Paris in his desk drawer and asked him about it. And he told her he had stolen it from his medical supply job, saying, "You'll never know when you're going to break a leg or something."
Okay.
Angie thought she was being fucking crazy. The Volkswagen in the news was said to be metallic bronze, but Ted's was more of a faded brown, right? Like, what are you thinking, Liz? Angie thought there was no way it could be Ted, but with how bad Liz was freaking out, she suggested Liz anonymously call the police just to get some peace of mind, Ask some very specific questions. Did this guy have a cold? Ted had a bad cold after they came home from Lake Sammamish, so that would have been obvious to anybody who had spoken to him.
Yeah.
Did he wear a watch on his right wrist? Ted Bundy was left-handed, so he always wore his watch on his right wrist. Was the car absolutely metallic, or could it have been more dull? So she did. She went and asked these questions, and nothing she asked had been reported. The friends went on to read every report they could find, and there were lots of discrepancies, enough to ease her mind.
Yeah.
So later that night, she went to Ted's, and they stayed up all night talking and drinking beer. She didn't mention any of this to him.
Yeah, of course.
During this time, Ted had decided he was going to go to graduate school in Utah. Liz was bummed that he hadn't asked her to move with him because they'd been together for like 5 years at this point. She was still going to help him, though, and found a nice place by the university on a visit back to see her folks. She's always going back to Utah because that's where she's fucking from.
Yeah.
And on a visit, she's like, I'm going to find an apartment for my boyfriend. After her trip, Ted picked her up from the airport, and she was fucking jarred because he had cut all of his hair off. And she's like, what the fuck? It totally threw her. And even though Liz had convinced herself that, quote, her Ted couldn't be the guy in the news, she still noticed odd things. Crutches in the corner of his living room when he didn't have an injury. Oh, they were his landlord's. He had a quick answer for everything.
Yeah.
A strange knife at his place. Well, he cooked a lot. Another time she had caught him with a taped up crowbar that he had hidden in a radiator in her building. He had some weird explanation for it, and she would later be asked about a taped up crowbar by investigators. But when she had dropped something while riding in his car, she reached under the seat and felt a hatchet. And this, for some reason, made her feel sick. Ted calmly told her that he had chopped down a tree at his parents' house the weekend before. No big deal. But she couldn't help but notice this disturbed feeling it gave her. Liz felt really guilty for mentally building a case against Ted. Every time that she would think that he was doing something weird and she connected it to this guy sexually assaulting and murdering women, she felt super guilty about it.
Yeah.
And so it would cut off her even considering that to be a possibility. It was crazy to her to think that this stuff was true or could have been true about him. She had such anxiety all the time. Drinking helped, and being around Ted was the thing that helped the most. Seeing how normal he behaved alleviated so many of her worries. On August 8th, Liz read an article in the paper that absolutely shook her. Around 12:30 a.m. on June 11th, a female university student was walking to a boyfriend's place when she saw a dude on crutches carrying a briefcase. He was dropping the case every few steps, so she had offered to help him. But first she was going to run inside to see her boyfriend, and she ended up being in there for a while. So when she came out, the guy was gone. This was the same evening that Georgianne Hawkins disappeared not 30 minutes later. The thing that shook her was the fucking crutches. Liz immediately called Angie, who told her to call the police, which she did. The cop on the phone really wanted her to come in, but Liz refused because it made it too real. She didn't want to give her name. She didn't want to give more information than she had to. Nothing that would stick to her. She eventually hung up on him, sobbed, and drank herself to sleep, as was her norm. Ted left for Utah in September, which was a huge relief to Liz. She needed some space, although they continued to talk on the phone every day. That was also when the missing Lake Sammamish women's remains were found. Then in late October, Liz went to pick up Angie from the airport after a visit back home in Utah. Angie also was from Utah. Now, remember, we're in the 70s. There's no 24-hour news cycle or internet or anything. Mm-hmm. Angie gets in Liz's car and goes, I don't want to scare you, but it's happening in Utah now. Melissa Smith had gone missing on October 18th. Liz called the police, still feeling crazy, but needed to alleviate this pressure. Mm-hmm. She met with investigator Randy Hergesheimer. It turns out they had questioned and cleared Bundy. Liz talked at length with the detective and answered detailed and personal questions. She told him everything that made her suspicious, but Ted was squeaky clean. The psych profile that had been written up about the potential killer didn't match him at all. She even reluctantly gave him photos of Ted. Now there was real evidence that she had been talking to the police. After their talk, Liz felt immense guilt, but also relief, because there's no way Ted's doing this shit. You know? Right. But now she couldn't deny to Ted if he was like, oh my God, I found out you went to the cops. They have these photos. Yeah. And she couldn't talk herself out of it. Because when you're in that deep too, you're playing a game with the game that they play. Yeah. To remain in their good graces. But they're 2 moves ahead, always. Yeah. On November 8th, 18-year-old Carol Durant was approached by a man telling her he was a cop and that her car had just been broken into in a Salt Lake Mall parking lot. He had gotten her in his car to make a statement when he slapped a handcuff on her, but before he could get the other wrist, she was able to escape, run into traffic, and save herself. Later that same day, Deborah Kent disappeared from her high school parking lot. Detectives found a small key in the lot where she had gone missing, and it fit the handcuffs used on Carol. Liz was driving herself fucking crazy. The suspicions were back and swimming in her head. By this point, she'd been told twice by 2 different departments that Ted Bundy had been cleared. She was also drinking to the point of blackout just to sleep at night. She was talking to Ted daily, but would disassociate the news and her suspicions from the conversation. Like, how could this be the same fucking guy? Yeah. Before going home for Christmas that year, Liz talked to her dad and asked him to call the police. He was appalled. He told her she needed to be certain or she'd ruin Ted's career. She wasn't positive, so he said he didn't want to get involved. Bundy picked her up from the airport with big hugs, and she felt so good all over again. Oh my God, the guilt of saying anything to her dad. It just felt amazing being around Ted. Watching him with her daughter and her family, it just gave her peace of mind. She went back to Seattle embarrassed by how intensely she had suspected him. On January 12th of 1975, Karen Campbell disappeared from a resort not far from Aspen, Colorado. Liz's relationship with Ted continued as it had. At one point, they again decided they were going to get married, but after so many cycles, her close friends and family weren't excited about it. She was confused as to why and claimed it as her fault because of all the worries she shared with her folks and shit and her talks with Angie. March of 1975, the remains of Linda Healy, Susan Rancourt, Roberta Parks, and Brenda Ball were found, all less than 12 miles from where Jan Ott and Denise Nasland were found. In March of 1975, Julie Cunningham was walking to meet up with friends in Vail, Colorado, when a man on crutches asked her to help him carry his ski boots to his car. She disappeared and her body was never recovered. In April, Denise Oliverson disappeared while riding her bike in Grand Junction, Colorado. She was also never found. Although he never confessed, evidence also put Ted Bundy in the area in Colorado where teenager Susie Cooley went missing in April and when Shelley Roberts' body was found in a mine in August. When Liz was visiting in August, there was a day Ted was completely unreachable. This, along with more evidence of him stealing, they got in a big fight and broke off their engagement. This time it was different. She felt free from him, but continued to talk to him. The intertwined nature of that kind of relationship
trauma bond, dude.
Big time.
Yeah, I've had that.
On August 16th, Ted Bundy was arrested for possession of burglary tools. He had been stopped by Highway Patrol Sergeant Bob Hayward after hanging suspiciously outside of a house in his car. In his car, Hayward found a ski mask, gloves, rope, a crowbar, ice pick, gym bag, handcuffs, and pantyhose with eye holes cut in them. Liz found out about Ted's arrest and went in to talk to Detective Kathy McChesney. Liz recounted the whole story, but as she did, sprinkled in that she was probably crazy or wrong or mistaken. Police couldn't hold him for long, but he was finally on their radar. There were quite a few things about this guy and his vehicle that made Sergeant Hayward remember the attempted abduction of Carol Durant in November. So Bundy became a strong suspect. Salt Lake cops went to Seattle to meet with Liz. Detectives had so many questions and so many things continued to line up, but then just as many things would throw Liz off and make her question herself. The suspect wore patent leather shoes. Ted didn't wear patent leather shoes. What am I even doing here? Detectives were annoyed with her that she was still hoping he wasn't involved. The main constant for her was that she kept coming back to that it was not possible and that she was awful for even thinking it.
Mm-hmm.
Ted had started calling and sending flowers. He told her that he had joined the Mormon church. After he told her he was coming to visit, the detective told her that she needed to tell him she knew he had been arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And she did. She confronted him and he's like, oh, it was for speeding. But then she confronted him about the burglary tools and he said he was being harassed. It was just a bunch of stuff he had collected. It was just junk in the trunk of his car. Her mind was officially being fucked. Like she couldn't, she was confused. Even though from the outside it's like, well, this is obvious. How are you confused? Your mind is just fucking clinging for a reality that's not there, you know?
Yeah.
Even through this, even through detectives telling her what they were telling her, shit lining up with everything that she had already known, she wanted to comfort Ted. Poor guy was going through a lot. They were after him and he was just some guy.
Yeah.
On October 2nd, 1975, Ted Bundy was selected from a lineup by Carol Duranch and 2 other witnesses. He was arrested and charged with attempted kidnapping. Liz was a mess and continued to drink to cope, and the loop started all over again. Ted was writing letters from jail, professing his love, so apologetic for the anguish and pain he caused Liz, and all he wanted to do was take care of her and Molly and be a family. She felt that she deserved for him to hate her. She put him in this position. She led police to him. She made them think that he was capable of any of this.
Yeah.
She ended up confessing everything she told to Seattle and Salt Lake investigators. And he was so forgiving and she was so grateful. About a week later, Detective Kathy McChesney called with some news. One of the things Liz had supplied them with was an envelope of canceled checks from the prior winter that she had lifted from Ted's place when she was feeling especially distrustful.
Mm-hmm.
She just happened to grab it, you know, when she was digging through his shit, not finding any evidence of him cheating.
Yeah.
Detective McChesney had used those canceled checks to create a map of Ted's movements. They lined up perfectly with the places and times of the disappearances and murders of Karen Campbell, Julie Cunningham, and Denise Oliverson. Liz's psychiatrist, whom she was seeing at the time, told her to stop talking to Ted and the police. The police part she managed okay. She told Detective McChesney that she couldn't talk to her anymore. But when Ted was released on bond, he showed up to see Liz, and as hard as she tried to stick to her healthy choice, he was able to wear her down. By the end of the night, she was crying, drunk with him at a bar, walking home together and kissing in the street. Ugh. In the book, she quoted her thought at the time, "If anything was going to happen to him, it was going to happen to us." She knew people weren't going to like it, but she didn't care. She called Angie and told her Ted was staying with her and she loved him. Angie thought she was fucking nuts and told Liz she couldn't support her making such a huge and dangerous mistake. She let her know that she would talk to her when Liz was over it. Liz was even considering marrying Ted so she wouldn't have to testify.
Oh my God.
This is from that part of her story in her book. Quote, "Ted took me everywhere with him now, and that's what I had always wanted. I knew he needed me as some sort of cover to counteract the image of freak he had been given by the press, but I was willing to play whatever game it was if I could stand by his side." Of course, the loop went as it did. She caught him talking to other girls. They'd fight, and he'd beg for her forgiveness, telling her how awful he was for continuing to hurt her, and it would loop again. She confronted him about Colorado on one of these loops, and he told her he used to go on long drives because he wasn't doing well in school. He didn't want Liz to be upset with him, so he didn't talk to her about it. On February 23rd, 1976, the trial started for the attempted kidnapping of Carol Duranch in the Salt Lake City shopping mall parking lot. Supporting Ted had alienated her from every close person in her life. She could only sleep if she was drunk and taking Valium at this point. She said, quote, "My life had changed so much I couldn't believe it was my life." Relatable statement.
Mm-hmm.
On March 1st, 1976, Bundy was found guilty of aggravated kidnapping. Liz was in the courtroom sitting with Ted's parents as the verdict was read. She sobbed and hugged him, apologizing for what she had done to him. The judge had Bundy sent to a psych facility for 90 days to be fully evaluated before sentencing. After another full loop, on getting caught talking to other women, drinking to cope, etc. She talked to her counselor about Bundy and all the other women. The counselor asked, then why do you put up with it if it hurts so much? And she answered, because I love him and because I'm stupid. She told the counselor all about her fears and doubts that led her to calling police. She felt guilty for betraying Ted by even talking to the counselor about it. She was also going to a counseling group along with having private sessions. She finally shared in group therapy that she was, quote, terminally lonely because her boyfriend was in jail and he was her entire life. Her daily routine always ended up the same way, by getting drunk and writing Bundy letters while crying until she fell asleep. A member of her counseling group was in AA and recommended she might not want to drink so much. The counselor recommended she stop drinking and told her she couldn't make any meaningful changes unless she stopped. I mean, Liz got absolutely hammered every single night in an effort to distort her own reality, and she knew that's what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, fuck it, and she quit drinking. She wanted change really, really badly and didn't know how to get it. All the pain that she had blocked out was still there, but now she had to deal with it. But she was still insulted that they suggested she go to AA. No one was going to relate to her there. I mean, like, nobody was going through what she was going through.
Mm-hmm.
But she finally went, and it opened her eyes to what she needed. For as clear as it made her, she was still talking to Ted and supporting him. Quote, it embarrassed me to tell Ted about needing meetings to get sober, but I needed his praise and his opinions. Thankfully, he gave her approval, and she ended up staying in AA. I mean, it doesn't matter how you got in there. It's that you're getting the help that you need.
I'm surprised he approved of that because it kept her.
Yeah, I don't know.
Usually they don't want them to get like healthier. You know what I mean?
No. I think he had so much confidence in the control he had over her at this point that the drinking wasn't the issue.
Okay.
To him. Like, he could control her without the alcohol. And I highly doubt he really had a firm grasp on what AA was and the kind of like depth that you deal with in the program. So he sent her a series of letters throughout his psych evaluation saying that the psychiatrist believed him and thinks he's super normal, but also that he can't predict nonviolence and can't say anything for certain. Bundy was just really hard to read. He also said that the PO and psychologist wanted to talk to Liz. Then he started his manipulative coaching on how she should talk to them. There was a bunch of love letter shit. She was hysterical over it, sobbing, freaking out, throwing herself around. She wanted to die. She called AA people and ended up talking to a woman named Pat, who at the time of writing the book said she owed her life. She was 7 weeks without a drink, but still wasn't sure she would call herself an alcoholic. The evaluation from Utah State Prison came back. Ted Bundy was deemed to have an antisocial personality, harboring passive aggressiveness, being a private person, insecure, hostile, and unable to handle stress, also dependent on women. So this is just me on an aside. That other book that I read, Sociopath, at this time, sociopath, psychopath, all of those kinds of pathologies were lumped into a category of antisocial personality. So the way we think like, oh, antisocial, I like to be alone or whatever. Like, no, he was put into a category. It wasn't just like a personality observation. Like an antisocial personality was serious. Judge Hansen, who he stood before, reduced the charge from first degree to second degree kidnapping, taking the sentence from 5 to life to 1 to 15 years. There were no instances of arrest or similar actions by Bundy, so he didn't feel like he needed to really lay the hammer down. Mm-hmm. Investigators knew there was a hell of a lot more, so they continued to dig. For now, he was in prison, so they needed to find something. One of these steps was to take his entire Volkswagen Beetle apart and fully inspect it. And on October 21st, 1976, they were able to charge Bundy with first-degree murder in the 1975 death of Karen Campbell, the gal who disappeared from a ski lodge near Aspen. Her hair was found in his car. He insisted to Liz that it was bullshit. Weird thing was, he had come home to visit 3 days after the Karen Campbell disappearance and showed Liz a brochure for Aspen ski resorts. Like, hey, we should check these out.
God, the hubris of that fucking man. Like,
yes, the one Karen had disappeared from had a check mark next to it. He had told Liz a man on the plane had given it to him. Yeah, the absolute. I mean, this is the like mental game shit where he's just dancing on the line of.
And he doesn't want to go to Aspen. He's telling her what he did.
Yeah. He was then extradited to Colorado to be tried for her murder. We all know the story of him jumping out of a library window of the courthouse, right? June 7th, 1977. He was found 6 days later driving a stolen car and taken back into police custody. He was then kept in a, quote, more secure facility that he managed to escape from on December 30th. So he had been talking to Carol Boone. He was always seeing several women. And Carol Boone, I'll bring her up later, but I didn't want to go too far in. But he had money that she had been sneaking into him. He had lost 35 pounds so that he could shimmy through this crawl space to be able to escape. When he did escape, he had a 17-hour head start because they didn't realize he was gone until the next afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, although Liz had been talking to Ted, she was slowly working to detangle herself from him. She felt sick when she found out Bundy had escaped police custody again. After the new year of 1978, she nailed her basement windows shut. She admitted to herself that she was scared of him, even though she continued to deny that he could hurt her or Molly. On January 15th at Florida State University, the Chi Omega sorority house was broken into at 3 a.m. Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy were sexually assaulted and strangled until they were dead. Two of their sorority sisters, Kathy Kleiner and Karen Chandler, were then beaten with a blunt object. They survived. Another house a few blocks away was broken into as well, where Cheryl Thomas was brutally assaulted. When Liz learned of this, she had the gut feeling it was Ted Bundy. She was a fucking mess and terrified, but certain after seeing this that he was in Florida. Then a month later, on February 16th, 1978, she got a phone call, and it was fucking Ted. He was crying. He told her he was in custody, but made a deal that they wouldn't announce his capture until he talked to Liz and his family. How did he make a deal? He said he'd been playing with them since they picked him up. They didn't know who they had. He agreed to tell them who he was in exchange for the phone calls. He told her, quote, "It's going to be bad when it breaks, really bad." She kept asking if he was a suspect in the Chi Omega sorority murders, but he didn't answer her and asked her about her love life. She'd been hanging out with this dude in recovery, Hank, and they talked about that a little bit. Hank was actually there, and Ted's like, "Let me talk to him," and told Hank on the phone, "Please take care of Liz and Molly for me."
Yeah.
Fucking, yeah. She sat there on the phone thinking that she couldn't believe she had been afraid when he escaped and was sucked right back in. He's harmless. He didn't do anything. This is insane. They talked again a few days later, and he wanted to talk to her about being sick and wanting to reconcile things in his life. He went on and on about everything that drove him to commit the crimes that he did. He confessed everything to her. He described something building inside of himself, and he fought it but couldn't contain it. She wanted to hold him and comfort him, and then asked, "Did you ever want to kill me?" And he did. That I didn't mean that to be funny.
No, I know.
But yeah, one night the force came over him and he sealed the door and vents with the fireplace going at her place and left so that she would die. Instead, she woke up, coughing and thought she'd just been really dumb. Like, oh my God, I can't believe the vents closed and oh my God, I could have died in here. He told Liz that he used her to touch back to reality and explained that this shit is a disease, like your alcoholism. He unloaded so much to Liz, telling her she was just the initial stop in his unburdening. He planned to confess everything to police and to the public. She later found out that the really bad thing he had warned her about, that he had been arrested and charged for the kidnapping and murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, a Florida girl the same age as Molly. Her body was found in a pig pen in Suwannee County a month later. She'd been raped and strangled to death. Liz reached out to King County Police and told detectives on the case all about the phone conversation with Ted. That was in February. Ted called Liz again in May, and he hadn't made things right at all. He never confessed after that call with Liz. She was fucking pissed and confronted him about it, but now he wouldn't admit to anything that he had told her on the phone. So at this point, Liz and Hank had been seeing each other for a while, and on the call in May, she had told Ted that Hank wouldn't want them talking anymore. She wasn't strong enough, in her words, she wasn't strong enough to tell him that she didn't want to talk to him anymore.
Yeah.
A little ways down the road, she got a letter from him, but not directly from him. It was forwarded to her through Carol Boone, the woman who was giving him money. He ended up marrying Carol and having his only child with her, by the way. I would go down that road, but we've been here for so fucking long.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to focus on Liz's experience. That's a whole other story in itself. So he sends Liz this letter, and it was a fucking dragging, okay? Brace yourself for this audacity. He said that he had found out that she had told police about their entire conversation where he confessed to her, and that his representation and friends and family thought that she was embellishing and trying to make things worse. He went on to say that he was a fool for doing everything he could to keep her name out of the news. He was protecting her, but then she turned around and told police about their entire conversation and things that he admitted to.
Protecting her?
Yeah.
From what? Him?
He is the most dangerous thing in that country right now. And so here's a few bits and pieces of that insane letter. Quote, several friends and reporters called me a fool and said that they believed that you were the reason and you were responsible for some of these things that were happening to me. Do you want to hurt me so badly that you would twist the truth to see me swing from some wooden beam by my neck? All I'm saying is that you could have gotten yourself in much hot water, and you're fortunate that what you thought you had was of no value to the police. If you did what I've been told you did, you were not thinking of your welfare or Molly's or your parents or your new life. He was again attempting to manipulate her in a way that had worked for years. But this time it didn't work. It made her sick. He couldn't guilt trip her anymore. He called not long after to apologize and tell her he hadn't meant to send it, that he was just really upset. He was in the same loop. They weren't even on the phone for a minute before Liz ended the conversation, and that was the last time they ever spoke. He did try to call her again, but Molly had answered the phone and not accepted it, but didn't tell her mom for a long time. In July of 1979, Liz was watching on a TV as a verdict was read that Ted Bundy was found guilty for raping and beating 2 students in their sorority house and beating 3 others. The jury took 6 hours to convict, and Bundy was sentenced to death. Ted Bundy ultimately confessed to killing 30 people before being executed on Tuesday, January 4th, 1989. And this was just at the tail end of the book. Molly wrote a chapter and had told her mom several years later, when Molly had gathered the strength to tell her mom, that Ted abused her on several occasions. It wasn't the violent MO he had used on his victims, but she knew even then that it was wrong and made her feel unsafe. She was a little kid.
Yeah.
And he was doing shit to her. I just felt like that was important to say, because he, not that anyone needed, like, hey, just so you guys know, he didn't have any redeeming qualities, but there were things that said, like, you know, he was really good to her daughter, so at least there was that.
Yeah.
It must have fucked with her head because he was like such a positive figure in her life. It must have fucked with her head to find out that he was, you know, stark opposite. And no, he was a predator to her as well. So monster all around. Hurt every single person that he came in contact with on varying degrees.
It's like crazy how there's just some people that are like that, you know?
And it's, I mean, I know I brought it up, but the book Sociopath, this gal who wrote it was so really open and honest and vulnerable about being a sociopath and how she like processes feelings differently. She's like, I have big emotions. I have anger and happiness and things like that. And like, I can love people, but I know it's different. And the nuanced emotions, I don't feel those the same way or like understand them at all, really. And she would described having a buildup of something building inside of her, and she would have to do things to take the pressure off, you know, and she would do things like break into buildings and steal cars and just shit that she would try to not get caught for. But she's like, I have to do bad things to relieve this pressure. And it was always a big relief. But then it would start building again. And she had decided really early on when she was young, she was like, no hurting anybody. I can't hurt anybody. But she wanted to. Like this thing inside of her was like, this would really relieve a lot of. She did hurt people when she was younger and was like, I understand that that's not okay to do. But so like reading it from that perspective, then also seeing the same traits in somebody who just let it completely take over. It's fucked and super interesting at the same time. Explanation, not excuse. Gabe Joyner, all the time. Mm-hmm. I just found it interesting. That is in no way to be like, he couldn't help it. Like, no, I don't fucking give a shit. Mm-hmm. When it hurts people, I don't give a shit. Yeah, so.
Wow, so that's crazy. I didn't know. I knew pretty much nothing of that lady's side of it.
No, I didn't. I didn't either. I mean, up until that Zac Efron movie was being made, her book was out of print for a long time. Kendall's not her real last name. Mm-hmm. She wrote under that pseudonym, and it wasn't like a well-known piece of writing. And then the Zac Efron thing, and she was like, hey, motherfuckers, if you're going to base shit on my shit, it's going to be done accurately. And once she got on board, they were cool with her or whatever. But she corrected a few things that she had. One of the things she said was something like, he was a loving person with this like dark sickness. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I want to change that. That's a person who's still like disillusioned who wrote that. Like 3 years after he went to prison, she wrote this book. Mm-hmm. She was like, he was a fucking monster living in plain sight. He wasn't a good person who did bad things. Like you don't get to do the things he did and have that as your like subtitle,
Yeah.
Oh my God. This chaser took me for fucking ever, dude.
Yeah, well, it was good.
So the moral of the story here is everything about this story was difficult for me. I had the hardest time.
Yeah. Because you hear sometimes about serial killers' wives or girlfriends who are like, no, they can't possibly be. And then you hear some where they're like, the next day she left him and divorced him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am not that. I would not be that strong of a person to be like.
Not back then.
Bye.
Not in my 20s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not in my 20s at all. I'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. There's got to be, it's hard. It's really hard, especially when like in her mind, she knew him.
I think me now, I would be like, oh, they're a serial killer. I'd be like, yep, that makes sense.
Bye.
And all, because we're always thinking,
yeah.
I mean, God forbid John doesn't kill me, but he might. You never know, because it's always the husband. You know what I mean, or whatever.
Right. I'd be like, I knew it. Yes. We've been married. We just celebrated our 11-year wedding anniversary. I fucking knew it. I've had 2 of his children and lived my life around and with this person. Fucking knew it. Yep.
Knew it. It's always been there. I knew it.
I always had my doubts. Yep. Always been in the back of my mind. Ugh. Yeah. If he made it to the end of his life and that wasn't true about him, I'd be like, wow, good guy.
Rest in peace, brother.
I think.
He's like dying in your bed and you're whispering, just tell me. Tell me.
Just tell me. I know what you did. Just tell me. That so much of this rings like so familiar. But I feel gross saying there's an icky thing I feel, even relating, even though I think so many women can relate because it's an MO of this type of personality, but only to like the next extreme level where he's fucking a violent rapist and murderer.
It is icky for me, and sometimes I can't watch stuff from like the abused perspective. I can't watch the process on a show or something because I just see I could see how I would have easily been that person, how I could get to that level at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm saying the icky feeling for me is being like, same.
Oh, yeah.
Because like, definitely not, but also I guess I feel like it's important to be like, this is relatable because then there's no shame around being in the position that she was in and being like, I stayed with this guy for all of these years, even when I was like, he might be murdering women.
It can literally happen to anybody though. Like, and people are like,
yeah,
well, if it was me, no, don't ever fucking say that. I hate that on the internet. Well, if it was me, I would have fucking, you don't know. You probably wouldn't.
Just look at him. I could tell just by looking at him. And it's like, you're seeing Ted Bundy, the serial killer.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the guy who looks like Danny Tanner fucking in a weird turtleneck making your daughter breakfast.
Yeah. It's like bullshit.
All right. Well,
anyways,
it's been long enough.
Okay.
Hey, this is Tasha by myself jumping in to do Gabe's part here because we forgot to do it when we recorded this for some reason. So I'm just going to seamlessly insert it here. That was my nickname in high school. Pause for laughter. I'll just do it as Gabe. Okay, well... Stutter. Okay. Wait, this is me doing Gabe's dad, Rick's impression of Gabe reading for next episode. Next week we've got a Patreon release. We're going to give you guys a little taste of that. And then we've got a little week off, but there's plenty of stuff on Patreon if you want that. On November 12th, we're going to give you Season 7, episode 9. I can't talk like that for very long. I sound like I'm fucking... What's his name? Oh, yeah. Next week. I need somebody to rein this in. Okay, season 7, episode 9. Macho Man Randy Savage. That's who it is. Season 7, episode 9, Rockabye. Gabe sent me her write-up for this. A pregnant teen runaway is brutally beaten up in a hotel room. Her dad's a dick. Purity promises and weird shit. What's gonna happen? Oh my God, that was so good, Tasha. Good job. Seamless transition back into episode...
So rate and review us. Email us at svupod@gmail.com. If you want to send us anything, P.O. Box 176, Deforest, Wisconsin, 53532. Have you checked that recently?
Yeah.
Did we get anything?
No.
No? Oh.
I always tell you right away. Like, I'm like, yeah, somebody sent us a briefcase with $1 million in it.
Briefcase that just has like Dumb and Dumber where it's the IOUs. IOUs.
275,000. You're going to want to hang on to that one.
Yeah. All of our social media is at SVUpod. You can get merch and stuff, svupod.com or tpublic.com. We got stickers, tapestries, tote bags.
And TeePublic is teepublic.com.
Oh, yeah. We have a Facebook group called SVU Pod Elite Squad, and we have a Facebook group chat called Walk and Talk. Hashtag Little Bit Loud for Indie Pods. If you are an Indie Pod, hashtag, that's so people can find you. And join our Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/SVU Pod. We got tons of shit on there. So much.
So much stuff. So much stuff. Hours and hours of fun between us and you.
Text or leave a voicemail at 1-920-345-7005. 1-920-345-7005. Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, that sounds good. We've been
All
here
right.
for a very long time, and I love you so much. Goodbye.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye. Man, I got to cut that joke out, too. Maybe I'll say it later.
Maybe I'll say it. I was going to say Virgurgans.
Like, no, we don't have a cool partner name.
Yeah. Jurgens tells Benson and Novak
Team
to do
Ramrod.
the favor of having team. Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Dude, we are a
you have to
couple
walk
of
slow.
dumb bros.
And then, have you ever had it when they put in a joke hole where only farts can get in? And to our Elite Squad patrons, Marisa M, Elke H, Tricia S, Emily T, Katarina G, Mary D, Joshua H, Lem, Eliza W, Nikki B, Melanie G, Andrew, Miranda B, Lauren T, Katie A, KH, Vanessa, Lex, Shelby K,
Kimberly L, Bonita R, Maren, Ursula, Catherine M, Kate P, Jessica S, D, Jana M, Tammi J, Bear, Sam D,
Mac Tilyak,
Meg M, Alexis J, Caitlyn S, Kristina D, Camille Z,
Maggie D, Sin, Jessica P, Victoria, Scout G, Melissa M, Desiree R, Monica K, Katie S, Brenna T, Andrea M, Tosh, Al H, Andrea H, Aunt Sarah. Hi.
Whoa, the Aunt Sarah, Katie H, Vern, Catherine B, Ariana, Madeline K, Kristen F, Samara B, Amanda P, Mahalia S, Jules K, Julie R, Tracy, Rachel, Kitty,
Carrie M, Leilani J, Alex, Samantha S, Angie W, Ariel E, Becky A, Amelia T, Margaret S, Natalie B, and Emily D. Thank you so much for supporting us.
You're the best
All right.
people. Honestly, yeah. If you guys all left, we'd be done. Okay. Love you. Bye. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.